And he was of that genre before there were televisions and stuff. And so his, what you call back pocket, was full and bulging of stories. And of course, he would pick out what he thought to be an appropriate story to tell to illustrate a point. This particular little story that he tells now comes at a certain point in the training, which you have just visited. And it's at that point that he's just taught that lesson where you're tilting your legs to the left and your arms are going to the right. And then your head goes with the legs and your eyes go with the arms. And then the eyes go with the legs and the head goes, and you know, all of that. This talk is about that experience. And the question that's driving this talk, you know, the subtext that's driving this talk is, how come if we have these amazing neuroplastic brains, and I'm putting a modern spin on it, how come if we have these wonderful, amazing plastic brains, we can't do this switch from doing it this way to that way, or from this way to this way? Remember I mentioned that word cognitive dissonance? You know, you go to do it and something inside just goes, oh, well, what? So this is what this story is about. And it's this is one of my favorite stories, but it might not be yours, but that's too bad. Yeah. But let me play the story. For those of you who had difficulty with his accent, I'm sorry, but I have done a paraphrase of the story, and we'll put it up on the knowledge base, okay? Here we go. And I think just after this video, Jenny would like to say a little bit more, and then we'll continue. But here we go.
And it's an extraordinary thing. That is this. There is only one Quran or one Bible or one book. I saw it first with the Yemenite Jews. A Yemeni Jews was in the train while I was traveling from Tel Aviv to Haifa. And I saw a delicate, beautiful face like a Jesus alive, but even more beautiful because Jesus is presented with some sort of funny colored beards on the pictures. I think nobody saw him. Maybe he was handsomer than that. But this one was with a black beard, delicate eyes, a wonderful expression of intelligence. And I saw the chap reading the book, but holding it in such a way that I could read it. But he had it upside down. And I saw he looked and looked and looked and turned page after page. And I gave the impression that I was reading because you could see on his face changing impression, looking and then thinking and then continued reading. And obviously he understood what he was reading. Now, the book was upside down. It means he had the writing, the print was turned towards me, was set in front of him. I was so intrigued that I couldn't last without asking. Ask him, can you read? He looked at me as if I were completely crazy. He said, don't you see I'm reading? I say, then if you read, is that the way of holding a book while reading? How can you read upside down? He looked at me and thought the man is completely an idiot. He said, what's the difference if you take it that way or that way? It's the same thing. I say, yes, but I can't read that way. He said, can't you? He said, you're a funny person, you can't read that way. He took the book and read aloud like that, then put it like that, read aloud like that, turn it around like that, in any bloody direction, with the same ease. Then obviously I realized that I was the idiot, not he. And I found that I read up to now, not much, about 10,000 books. And I can read them only when telling him like that. Then he say, how did you learn to do it? He said, I never knew that. I always saw, he said, that the Europeans, very clever people, can't read but one way. I thought they could never explain to me why. How come that they're so clever, can do so many things, make planes and things, but can't read a book when it's turned a little bit? It turns out that they never formed that sort of link in the brain that we make while we learn from the external world to read and write. The people in front of us put the book and they think always in that same way. And then look at that. Think, those who can't understand theory and believe that I'm not doing enough theory. Can you see that linkage in the brain, because that book is presented to us always like that? That we can't read the book upside down any more than we could move the eyes to the left while we move the head to the right. And that is not an inherent physiological quality, but a wiring in made through our own experience from the external world. Therefore, our brain is wired in, and it is an immobile, deformable pattern that we can go and die with it, and we will feel that we can't read with the book upside down. And when you do it now, we find it as difficult as moving the eyes to the right with the knees instead of moving it with the head. There's no such difficulty for that Yemeni Jew. And of course, there's no such difficulty for any of the Bedouins who learn in the same way. There's a teacher sits on the floor, has one book, because it's very difficult to get a book in the Yemen desert. So he has one book, the children sit around, and everyone sees the book from a different angle, and he learns to read. This is ba, 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 ba. The children learn to read like that. And then the child sits here, like I ask you to change position. Next day you may sit there, so he sees the same thing from the other side. And his brain is wired in to see the letters in any direction as they are. And would you believe that most white people can't do it? What does the compositor do at the printing office?
Okay. So if we do this as an awareness through movement lesson, your constraint is to keep your head, your midline of your face, in vertical alignment. Do not change your vertical alignment. Yep. And here's the ATM lesson that's coming. Close your eyes. Don't look, don't peek. Don't peek. Only because I don't know how to, yeah, don't peek yet. Don't look, 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 don't look. Oh, don't look yet. Wrong picture. Don't look yet. Coming, it's coming. So it's Christmas. Well, I do believe Easter is coming. Oop, too big. Okay, off you go. Yep, you might need to move closer. But there's an example of what Feldenkrais was talking about. Feel what it is that you want to do with your head in order to be able to read the text. Feel what it is that you want to do with yourself in order to do. Can you feel that some of you want to skew yourself off to one side? Don't. And what he's proposing in that video is those children could read the text like this in the same way that you could read the text if I did this. Now you can just keep your eyes open. Can you feel the difference in yourself? Has it got a different feel inside you? You know that those terms I used, cognitive dissonance? When it was twisted, did you feel it? It would have been nicer if the text was bigger, but yeah, but so I would suggest to you, as something to play with, is the next time you go to read a book, is try to do a little bit like this, but don't change the plane of your face, and see if it's possible to get that smooth kind of reading without feeling that dissonance. And Feldenkrais is proposing that that is within our human capacity to do. It's just that for most of us, well, why do I need to do that? There's no compulsion to do that. But you know, to tell you the truth, there's not much compulsion to do many of those crazy movements you've been doing on the floor either. It's no difference. Some people go, what are you doing? You've got your arm wrapped around your head and you're taking it around. What the hell for? So you see, and now probably Jenny, you want to say something? Well, here you go. Oh, no. Yeah, you're going to use Fox.
So just one more thing I wanted to say while you're all here, and I have said it to some of you, that when you indicated your intention to come along, I offered you the possibility of paying for a whole year at the early bird discount rate, or of paying segment by segment or on a monthly plan. If you have now made up your mind to continue for at least the remainder of this year and you would like to take advantage of the early bird offer, it is still open. I'm extending it for the next couple of weeks, so that if you would like to do that, you may still, of course, retain the options of paying segment by segment or on a regular payment plan. That's it. And the other thing that I didn't say about the website stuff, when we have our online discussions, you will get an email from me that says, click on this link to access the Zoom room. It'll say, Jenny's inviting you to a Zoom conference or something at such and such a date and time. It would be good if prior to that time, you click on the link and download the software onto your computer. It's pretty straightforward. It just says, you know, download here and it'll install and all that kind of thing. And then you need to register as a user so that you have a username and password and so forth. But again, for anyone who's ever downloaded anything and done that, it's a pretty straightforward process. But I will send instructions, and if you need help, please let me know.
Thank you, Jenny. So, what do I want to show? Okay. So what I want to introduce you to, and please consider this as an introduction. It's a starter. The other day I made the joke about the target and the arrow hitting the target, and I made the joke about the neutrino passing through. This is like, where are we going to go to? And this will give you an indication of where we can go to next time. So we all use the metaphors that make sense to us. Yeah, that make sense to us in terms of our own life experience. And Feldenkrais used that metaphor from electrical engineering of the brain wiring in. Now, there are no wires in the brain, so it's a metaphor, not really. There's no soldering that goes on, but there's synaptic connections. So what he's proposing is, through our interactions with the world, our brain forms connections. That's all he's saying. But if you don't know what on earth is forming connections, well, it's the beginning of something. Yeah? So this is a schematic of a neuron, some sort of imaginary neuron, and you can see that it's pretty like a tree with like a root system and a leaf system. You know, there can be 10,000 of these little guys down here. And what we're, as you know, what we're talking about is a great degree of complexity, huge degree of complexity. And when you get to listen to this with a narration, I'm playing this at 3 times speed. The guy says, if this was like a forest, it would take you 30 years to walk from one end of the tree forest to the other because there's so many trees in there. So, it's in your brain. This is probably a cortical neuron because they're vertically organized. So, but yeah. And here's the little bots inside going in. These are sort of representations of protein molecules. So at what level do you want to go down to? But this is an indication of what the complexity is. So when someone says to you, oh, it's neuroplasticity, it's a nice gloss, but do they know what's really talking about? No. That's a schematic. This is actually what they look like doing their thing of wiring together and unwiring in a petri dish. Because you can actually have them in a petri dish and they're doing their thing. So, yeah. Down below here, you'll see the time frame in hours. These little white guys, that was that blob of neuron, and those things that are squirming around, they're those long connecting cords and axons. And what you're seeing is wiring in and wiring out. If you watch this again and again, you'll notice that some connections are made, some connections drop out. There it is. It's what these guys do. It's what these cells do. Well, these are cells in the petri dish. They're neurons in a petri dish. So this is what a nerve cell does. It just sends stuff out, brings stuff back. Sends out up, brings stuff back. And then if it tends to somehow synchronize with some sort of event that you register or not register according to your question, it gets, for a moment in time, connected. Yeah. Now, remember, this is like an intro to where we're going to go to in May, so I'll elaborate a lot more in this, and so will Susan, because this is actually Susan's field, but from a cognitive science point of view, this guy is one of my heroes. This is the guy that I mentioned yesterday, you know, millions and millions of dollars of grant. He won the Nobel Prize for discovering how the immune system works. And then he turned his attention to how does the brain or how does the nervous system construct consciousness, which at that time, the tide was just turning and that kind of became a legitimate enterprise. But so this is the guy. Listen carefully what he has to say, or not. Gerald Edelman. Recently, he just died recently, unfortunately. Edelman, Edelman. Let's wind him back a little bit. Oh, no sound. Yeah, I've got it on. Gremlins. Oh, well. No. Sorry. Looks like a nice kind of guy, doesn't he? Can you read lips? No, it's on full volume. No, it's on up here. I'll stop it, close it, unplug it. And I only want to show it to you because he's my hero, but you know, I could really tell you what he says, but we'll try it. We'll try it just one more time. No. This one down here. Yeah, that's fully on. That's off. That's fully on. So we're not going to be able to hear it. So I'll just tell you straight out. He says, we have no idea how the brain controls movement. That was 2 years ago. We have no idea how the brain controls movement. Yeah, we got theories, but if you take it right down to the bottom line, we actually don't know. And then he says something else. He says, there is something important about movement and the relationship between movement and consciousness. We don't know what that is either, but wow, there is something important there, and that's something that would be good to find out. So this is from a guy who got lots of research funding and actually developed robots that that could actually learn without having every option typed into them, which was quite an achievement. You don't have to specify every scenario. They could actually associatively learn. Wow. So have a guy. It is a bit scary, but having said that, Feldenkrais himself, as part of one of his thinking disciplines, would be, now, how would this function arise? How would this ability in a human being arise? And if I had to make a robot, how would I need to construct that robot for it to be able to do that? Now, that's an electrical engineer thinking. So you can see, everybody draws. You will draw on your experience to make sense of things, and that's entirely appropriate. Please share it with me and your colleagues, because that expands our repertoire. Now, so where will we go to next time? Where we'll go to next time is trying to get to this understanding that learning is something that doesn't happen in a nervous system. And learning doesn't happen in a body. And learning is not outside of you. That the process of learning involves how Feldenkrais put it, the relationship between a nervous system enveloped within a body of a particular form, and then that body being in the envelope of its environment, of a particular form. And the relationships and interactions that happen between those three elements, that is the whole scenario for learning. It's not just the nervous system, it's not just the body, it's not just the environment, but it's actually a dynamic relationship between those three. So that's what we'll kind of get to explore more next time. Nervous system, yep. And I think that idea comes from elusive obvious. And if I can find just the right chunk, we'll see what, I'll make a PowerPoint out of it now. But I like making PowerPoints. Yep. So let's do an awareness through movement lesson. And then we'll do a reflective activity after a little break. Okay? And I know that some of you have to leave at 3:30, 3:15, yes? Yeah, we'll be finished the lesson by 3:00.